What do you make of the bad apple theory? You got, maybe 8 bad apples in the House of Representatives. If we could just straighten them out, Republican governance in the House of Representatives would go smoothly.
Yeah, so let's just back up for a second. So the two alternatives here are Jordan and Scalise, who both voted not to certify the election of the President of the United States. So, think about this, Lawrence. I've often thought, what is it like to work in the Biden White House and congressional liaison, and you have to go over and you have to talk to people who, okay, maybe they don't like your boss. You're used to that. You dealt with that when you worked on the Hill. But they don't think that your boss is a legal president. Where do you begin with that? It's just such dysfunction. And at the heart of it is why does the Republican Party exist now? There is no governing philosophy like you've been talking about all night. It exists to defeat Democrats and elect Republicans. And that's sort of a definition of like a cartel or a syndicate, like OPEC. Why does no one ask OPEC what its higher purpose is? They sell oil. And the Republican Party is just lost.
Yeah, if they believed in something, you could organize around that. And you've pointed out that this was a party that said for decades that it wanted to reduce or control or cut government spending in different ways. We know there was a certain amount of gamesmanship in that, things they were afraid of cutting. But then Donald Trump comes in, and they forget all of that. They never mention it. They raise the debt ceiling for Donald Trump whenever necessary. The debt skyrockets under Donald Trump. They abandoned all sorts of things that we thought they thought prior to Donald Trump exposing, as you put it, that it was all a lie.
Yeah, all of these things that we put forward as Republicans as deeply held values turned out to be marketing slogans. I don't know any other conclusion to come to. People don't abandon deeply held beliefs in a couple of years unless something extraordinary happens to counter them. But it's not just that the party drifted away from these principles, Lawrence. They're actively opposed to them. I mean, character counts. I mean, what happened to that? Personal responsibility. Now, if you accept personal responsibility, you're a chump. You're a sucker. Strong on Soviet Union. Now the pro-Putin element of American politics is in the Republican Party. There just is absolutely no reason that the party can articulate a governing philosophy. I mean, say what you will about someone, pick Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has a philosophy of government. He can argue with you, you can hate it, you can love it, but he can articulate it. I don't think anybody on the conservative side can do that with any credibility now.
And as to Matt Gaetz' future in the House of Representatives, this talk today about, why don't we just kick him out of our group of Republicans? I haven't heard anybody say a word that can in any way change the Matt Gaetz dynamic in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, so, what did they do when McCarthy was Speaker? Think about that. You had these ridiculous investigations, these faux impeachments. They weren't really working on anything that improved anybody's life. And at the root of it really is this sense that the party can't articulate what it believes. So in a situation like that, the person who's the loudest, craziest fan who will run onto the field, shirtless and get tackled, that's the person that gets attention. And this idea that somehow the Republican Party is going to revert to some normalcy is just a myth. It's not there. It's not going to happen. And the only way I think that the party can save itself is to lose. You have to defeat it again and again.
And from the ruins build something.
I think that there is a need for a center-right party. There is a need for two different philosophical governing philosophies in America to be able to articulate a case. But look at the 24 election. It's going to be between an incumbent president and a party that believes they're running against an illegal president. I mean, he's an occupier. We've never had an election like this. It's not going to be about two different philosophies. You think about it, Lawrence, these Republicans are heir to the greatest generation. and what they did to keep democracy, to defeat autocracy, to defeat fascism. And they can't even get their comm shop to put out a statement congratulating the president-elect of the United States. I mean, that's a pretty low bar compared to, like, charging a beach or taking a machine gun nest. And it's like they've sort of forgotten what it means to be an American. It's this sort of party of grievance. There's no optimism. And it's really become a white grievance party. 85% of Trump's coalition was white in a country that's 59% white and rapidly becoming a minority-majority country.